Greetings, blessed love, Jarastafari. So here we are at the second video, which is not the music video, but the one for the Constitution. And I'll just walk you through the pages of that document, which is basically an invitation to all the sisters in the world to do the leadership work. So before I start, let me just kind of like, we are Rastafari. And my approach to this whole work is, if His Imperial Majesty was to do something about Africa right now, or if His Imperial Majesty was to start from the point that I'm starting, what are the steps that he would take? How would he approach it? So, and being given if I had the resources and the access to every office in the world, the way His Majesty would, that if I was to knock on the door, call on the phone and say, my name is Emperor Haile Selassie and here I am and I got something at heart and, this is what I want to achieve. That's how I think, and that's the approach, because I think that's the way we can best serve His Imperial Majesty. To think of it within the international work and the international diplomacy that His Majesty was involved in throughout his life. At any stage of his life, he had to do some diplomatic work. If it was in Harare, then you'd have travelers passing through by his father's office, and you have to be diplomatic to those as well. So the language and the approach of diplomacy is ultimate in this issue, since as Rastafari, what is required of I and I, really, when you read the Psalms, when you read the book, is that we should speak at the gate, which means at the parliament, because at the gate of the city is where the decision makers of the city would sit and speak about what's to be done. And the gate, is where people pass through. So who's coming in, who's paying tribute, who's trading, who's going out, going in and going out, that's at the gate. So when you read the Psalms and they say, like speak at the gate, so I'm a Gadite. It is my blessing to be of Gad, and we know the blessings that was given to Gad, and we know that was, in the end days, Gad shall really gather the people to the heads of Israel, really. So, and I are very happy to be fulfilling that mission, that Gad should fulfill. And we do it faithfully, So, the approach with the entire document that we have here, which you're planning to, at some point after we've gone through this, is to have a document that we're going to send to every embassy in the world and every women's organization in the world. But I need a working group to do that, and we need Rastafari to lead the way. Obviously, through Her Imperial Majesty Empress Menen, we cannot imagine any other group of women to take on the task of creating a constitution for all women of the world. That would be very pleasing as a legacy to Her Imperial Majesty. So as a brethren, I call upon the sisterns in the exact same way as His Imperial Majesty would call upon Empress Menen. Though many times you could say it's the other way around. It's Empress Menen who tell His Majesty that it got to go like this or it got to go like that, you see. So that's something that we got to acknowledge too, that the sisters are on it already. So in that instance, as a brethren, then I'm all ears, and I say, well, here I am, send me. I'm your son, I'm your brother, and I shall do the work, Still, now let me go further. This document and this process is a direct response to an appeal by African leaders in the manifesto of NEPAD's manifesto from 2001. Chapter 4 is an appeal from the leaders of Africa to the peoples of Africa to set up platforms for public participation. And that's what I've done. I've set up different public platforms for public participation. But I've gone further than Thabo Mbeki, Obasanjo, and Muammar Gaddafi and all those brothers. And that's why at times you'll find a thing called Beyond Geldof. Did I include that? I don't think I did, but it should be on the list. Called Beyond Geldof is very important. that is because we have gone further in the overstanding or understanding of economics. We've gone further than neoclassical economics, and gone to see the importance of classical economics, especially in land tenure, land taxation, which was also a huge dilemma for His Majesty in the process of moving Ethiopia from feudalism to a modern society, and they still didn't achieve it. And that was the central part of the revolution. They were saying land shall belong to the tiller and all manners of things. But there were certain things in foresight that they didn't have. But it looks like His Majesty is getting ready to really deliver the real revolution, the real movement, because His Majesty was not against the revolution. His Majesty began the revolution and educated everybody to become part of the revolution. Every revolutionary was educated by His Majesty. They didn't even know what the meaning of the word revolution was until His Majesty taught them that word. You see, so the revolution must happen, and I, Rastafari, must deliver it because we represent the thinking of His Majesty himself. So for me, it's not really the cultural or the spiritual or whatever. It's more the office work, the actual work that His Majesty would get up and do on a daily basis, the administration, office structures and processes and those type of things. That's what that's the fire that I burn. And that's what I call upon sisters who are ready to work with that. So I'm not about to start an organization where I am a charismatic leader and surrounded by this and whatever. And the next thing I know, I am in competition with His Imperial Majesty, for attention or for acknowledgement or for whatever. I'm not really into that, His Majesty is Majesty, and I will do things according to the way that He does it. See, so I've spoken a lot now. How much time do I have left? So as you can see from the first page, that's what it is. You can see Her Imperial Majesty on it, Universal Constitution for All Women of the World by Rastafari Sisters, and we call it the Empress Menen Order. I'm sorry if I'm stepping on any sister's toes by using that word, but I liked it, and I saw somebody use it, and I liked it. And I'm sure the sisters would like to be part of this too if there is such an organization. There's CCSR, Anderson Volunteer Agency, Walk the Talk, Next Up Zanzibar. For all these, there is a handbook that explains in depth what they're about, and they do have a logo. And so don't worry about that. If you're interested, ask for the handbook, and I'll give you the handbook, and we can go deeper into that, and then you'll see what you prefer to talk about the most. So there I am calling the sisters on page 2. And we also have the creed, the Nyabingi Creed. And then we go into the Cool Mom record, the preamble. So everybody is invited to look at the preamble and tell me whether you understand it, whether it needs to be adjusted, if you feel that it has overlooked anything or whatever. So this is now open for debate, and this way input is very much needed. And then the activation, the comprehensive corporate social responsibility, that is, again, that's a tool that is based on classical economics, and that's a deep issue. It has to do with the equation of the what do we call it, the value of money, the equation of money, and the equation that is at work right now in the economy, but we do not know how to use it to our advantage because we form part of the equation, but we don't know how to use the part of the equation that we form. Whereas the people who are rich, they know how to use their side of the equation, but it's an equation that means we're equal. If we get active within our side of the equation, more than just being spenders, then you will see that there's no need for all the suffering really. It's just there's a mathematical equation at work. Get involved, and it will work for I and I. You know what I'm saying? For all of us, you see. And so all these platforms are based on that one, and at the very top is CCSR, because that is the intellectual underpinning for all these platforms. Every one of these platforms has a mechanism of CCSR inside of them. This is science, has a mechanism of CCSR within it. And when you understand how CCSR works, you will see why those platforms are put together. But not we'll get into that. It's like biology, it's like physics, like chemistry, really. But as you can see, Anderson Volunteer Agency, Walk the Talk, Next Step Zanzibar, Soup Kitchen Reggae, Cool Mom Records. Cool Mom Records is the company that I'm doing this under, because it's a one-man company, so I'm kind of like running ahead and making sure that I let everybody know, and then at some point I'll qualify it into a different company, or and all these platforms could become companies in their own right. That's what I really hope. And Cool Mom Records definitely is going to be swallowed by this onslaught of women around the world who are going to take it up and make it theirs, you know. Um, and then finally here I have the framework. As you can hear, it's wonderful news, and we got to get started straight away. So those of you who want to get involved, you can see a type of framework for when what is happening. You can already get in touch now. But we have the Sakudusa Festival in Denmark. The Sakudusa is a festival which I have designed for Malawian ownership, that every single Malawian owns this festival, and it'll be held around the world so that people pay to be part of this festival with foreign currency, and that foreign currency is sent home to Malawi to support foreign currency in Malawi. So it's going to start off with one in Malawi to establish it, and there I explain clearly what goes on at that festival, and likewise with the one that happens in, well, the one in Denmark is for the process. This is very important right now. Denmark is one of those countries that is very good at developing processes, so it makes sense that we do develop it here. I've got a great network of project leaders, project concept developers, and those type of people who will eat this up, and will look at the process, the proper process that we need to bring in order to bring the establishment of the women's constitution next year on 8th March in Zanzibar, and it's called Next Up Zanzibar. And the name Next Up comes from a Danish movement that started in 1986, 87, called Next Up Soviet and Next Up Nevada. Next Up Nevada, Next Up Soviet. Those young people in Denmark who were peace protesters, protesting for peace against nuclear war, and they actually took a bus to the desert in Nevada where the nuclear testing, the American nuclear testing was happening. So they decided to go there so they could disrupt it. So you had about 50 Danish youth on a bus going to Nevada, and it was called Next Up Nevada. It worked, the PR worked, and so they felt that with that type of victory, they thought, well, why don't we go fight the other way? Instead of saying against the nuclear arms, let's go see how we can be for peace through intercultural interaction. And so they decided to go have some festivals and some music on the other side of the Iron Curtain. And so they had Next Up Moscow, or Next Up Soviet. And out of that movement came other movements, some of the institutions that I went to for my training. And what am I trying to say? So I borrowed the name, Next Up Zanzibar. They will understand in Denmark what it's about. It's a rallying call. In Denmark, they will understand it differently from anywhere else. So we say, Next Up Zanzibar, it means they know, what's that? Next Up Zanzibar, what's that about? And then they'll jump on, and they're very professional people. So that's the development of the process. And then you have, after that, we got the one in Malawi with my mother's women's group, so we can get the women on board. They're very important. The text is all there for you all to read what that's about. And basically that's it. Just read the text, and any questions come to me. I can see I'm coming to the end of this video. And it's as simple as that, really, you know. This is the beginning of the process, and I'm available for answering questions and for taking suggestions on board. I'm your brethren. I'm your brother. I love Rastafari, and you know, there's no need to worry about anything. Jah will truly carry I through. You know, the wicked just don't know. They're complicating everything, but I here to simplify it, you know, and amplify it and glorify it. See? Blessed love. It's Rastafari.